because I just watched Smile for the second time and I realized something like I always do when I watch these horror movies. This isn't a movie about a smiling demon. Okay, yes it is. However, it's deeper than that. It's a movie about how trauma actually works, not the way movies usually show it, the real way, the way that doesn't go away when you ignore it, the way that gets passed on from one person to the next until finally somebody turns around and looks at it. Quick summary of the Smile, and I'll say it now, like I always do, spoilers ahead and content warning. This video deals with trauma, PTSD, and self-deletion, so please take care of yourself. Smile is a 2022 horror film directed by Parker Finn. It follows Dr. Rose Cotter, a therapist working in a psychiatric hospital. One day she gets a new patient, a graduate student named Laura, who's clearly terrified. Laura tells Rose that she's being followed by something only she can see, something that wears the smiles of strangers. And while Rose is sitting there trying to do her job, trying to apply her training, Laura's face, her face changes. She smiles, this unnatural stretch, wrong kind of smile. And then she self-deletes herself in front of Rose. From that moment, Rose is cursed, or so it seems. She starts seeing the smile too, on strangers, on her therapist, on her sister, on her nephew. The thing, whatever it is, this monster, this demon has attached itself to her. And she has 7 days before it takes her life, the same way that it took Laura. Now, here's the rule of the curse, the part that makes this movie so much more than it appears. This entity passes from person to person through trauma, specifically through witnessing the death of someone who's cursed, which is an interesting and unique angle to a horror movie. To survive, the cursed person has to murder somebody in front of a witness. That witness becomes a new host, and unfortunately, the cycle continues. So this thing, this smiling demon, it's been going for a long time. It's a chain. It's kind of like the thing from It Follows. It's a chain of trauma being handed to the next person again and again because nobody has ever been able to stop it or willing to. Rose tries to fight it. She investigates. She tries to find a survivor. She tries to do everything you're supposed to do. However, the entity keeps coming. And unfortunately, again, spoiler alert, she dies at the end of the script, being killed by the demon by burning herself alive in front of her ex-boyfriend. And unfortunately, spreading the curse to her, which will lead to the second film. But I will create a second video on that later. The movie Smile isn't really about a demon, like I said before. It's about the thing inside of us that we keep handing to other people because we can't bear it to keep it ourselves. Now, how did this movie help me deal with my own trauma? Because I've known what it's like to carry something else that nobody else can see. To walk into a room and feel like there's a thing standing behind you that everyone is somehow ignoring. To try to explain what you're going through and watch the other person's face to go from like concerned to skeptical to dismissive in a span of about 30 seconds. Yeah, I know exactly how that feels. The smiling demon curse didn't create the trauma. It activated the trauma that was already there. It awakened the trauma that was already there. And that's what generational trauma actually is. It's not just things that happen to that happened to your parents or your grandparents that you somehow, that you somehow inherit through DNA. We all carry that inside of us, but it's the wounds that nobody's dealt with, the stories nobody's told, the grief nobody allowed themselves to feel. And it sits in a family, in a person. Like an empty room with the door locked, unfortunately. And then something happens, some new pain, and it awakens all the old pain, and it just makes everything worse. It is not just that new pain that you're feeling. It's everything that you felt before. It's like everything that you've been suppressing is now no longer suppressed. Everything that you've kept locked in a cage is now let out. I've experienced that. We've all experienced that. That moment when something happens in your life that should hurt only a normal amount, but instead it hurts like times 1,000. It's like when Superman gets stabbed with kryptonite. It's like everything that's ever happened to your family or to you is hurting you. It's hurting you all at once, and you can't really explain why. More specifically, when I was in high school. Now, here's where Smile gets wicked, because to roll the curse to survive, you have to traumatize someone else. That's not a horror gimmick. That's the actual mechanism by which trauma travels through families and also from person to person. The old saying goes, hurt people hurt people. We've all heard that. But Smile shows you what that actually means. Somebody is suffering. They can't bear it alone, so they hand the suffering to the next person. They lash out at their kids. They withdraw from their partners. They explode at their friends. They aren't doing it because they're evil. They're doing it because they don't know how to keep holding what they're holding. So they have to pass it. They have to take it out on someone else, and then the next person picks it up. And unfortunately, they start to carry it too. And eventually they do the same thing, and the chain goes on and on and on. And the reason the curse of Smile goes on for so long is because nobody breaks it. Nobody's willing to face the entity directly. Nobody's willing to sit with it for what it actually is. They all run. They all try to outsmart it. They all try to pass it on, and every single one of them dies because they fail. And Rose figures this out eventually. And she realizes that the only way to stop the curse is to confront it alone. No witnesses, no passing it on, just her inside of a house sitting with that thing that's been hurting her. And that's the climax of the movie. Rose returns to her childhood home and faces the entity head on. And unfortunately, she loses. The movie ends with her death and the curse passing on to her ex-boyfriend, like I said before, who watches her burn alive. And spoilers for the second movie, it opens with him still trying to get rid of the curse, because now he's carrying her trauma himself and trying to pass it on to someone else. And that's bleak. Yeah, I know, but I don't think the movie is saying confronting trauma doesn't work. I think the movie is saying you can't confront it alone. Rose tries to face her trauma in isolation with no support, no community, no witnesses who's on her side. Granted, everyone in the movie thought she was going crazy except for her ex-boyfriend and so on and so forth. And I understand that she didn't want her ex-boyfriend to witness her death. However, we realize that isolation also doesn't work. Trauma can't be processed alone. It can't be willpowered out of you. It needs witnesses. It needs people. It needs to be said out loud to someone who isn't going to flinch. The curse wins because Rose is alone, not because she faced it. This movie taught me that trauma isn't a thing you carry. It's a thing that carries you. It moves through you. It changes how you walk in the rooms. It changes who you can love and how. It changes what you're capable of. And if you don't deal with it, it deals with you. But it also taught me this: you cannot face it alone. The smiling thing in the corner of your life, that monster, that demon, that wound you've been carrying since you've been too young to name it, the inherited grief that doesn't belong to you but somehow lives in your chest, that thing is not going to be defeated by isolation. It's not going to be defeated by just therapy alone or by willpower or pretending that it's not there. Okay? It's going to be defeated by being witnessed, by being told, by facing it with trusted loved ones. That is the only way that you can defeat trauma. And it's by doing that that eventually you can move forward. And like I said, you might not heal all the way. However, it's better than facing it alone and just letting it carry you. And like I said, you might not heal all the way. because trauma is still trauma. You know, pain tends to linger, as we all know. However, it is better to face it with trusted loved ones than to face it alone in isolation, because only then can you be strong enough to move forward. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if there's a smiling demon thing in the corner of your life, which I hope there isn't, just surround yourself with loved ones who can help you battle it, because that's how it loses its power. Thank you guys again. I'll see you guys next time.